Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth episode of the Virtual Coffee Show. This one's all about accounting. And of course, we've got CPA. So we've got Carrie Phillips from the CPA Queensland office. She's the president at CPA Queensland. And we've also invited PRATIBHA Sen, who is the associate director for India and Nepal at IdP. And as customary, we've got one of our star alumni, Ritika Dongre this time, who is an MPA MBA graduate. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Carrie Phillips on the screen. Carrie, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
That's good. And how's the weather in Brisbane today?
It's a little bit brisk. We've got our westerly winds blowing at the moment, so very sunny, but a bit of an icy cold wind today.
Excellent. So, Carrie, we've got a number of students across the world inquiring about accounting programs. And one of the key questions really is about CPA. So tell us a little bit more about a CPA, why CPA is important for students, to obtain a membership of CPA, because that's something that students really want to know from us.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of facets there that are quite important for students to get an appreciation of. So first and foremost is that employers tend to recruit here in Australia in particular, looking for CPA or CA accredited accountants for mid-range and senior roles. So it's really in the interests of students to engage in the program in terms of satisfying a fundamental criteria that might help them open up some doors in terms of employment opportunities as they progress throughout their career. The wonderful thing about CPA Australia is that we're an international professional membership body. So we currently have about 165,000 members across the globe, and about 25% of our membership are actual international members, and then about 75% of it is Australian based. Here in Queensland, we have about 16,500 members. So it's a very extensive professional membership body, and as is the case with many professions, there are requirements in order to maintain your accreditation for your membership by virtue of continued professional development. So CPA Australia, through its membership body and also through its volunteer network, have developed a really excellent continuing professional development framework to support professionals as they go through their career. The CPA program itself too, what is extremely beneficial for students to be aware of is it takes you beyond the technical. So the foundations that you learn in university are able to be built upon, and some specialisation potentially developed across some of the streams within the accounting profession. But then the real polish that's put on our CPA designated members is that they get that leadership strategy and global business perspective delivered throughout the program as well. So that's something that perhaps sets our program apart from others. The other thing that's fantastic too about being a CPA is just the network that you have the opportunity to become a part of. So members across the board are very, very generous with their contribution to the membership body, and so we have a very, very active volunteer network, and that starts right at the student level with student ambassadors, right through to people like myself who are fellows, and even beyond, where we've got a third age network where our retired members are also actively networking and also giving back to the profession as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that information. It's always going to be helpful for our future students. And speaking of students, of course, we got Ritika, who's going to be sharing about information on what kind of internship she has done at James Cook University. And last evening when I was speaking to her, she said she's done as many as 3 internships at JCU, of course, all in accounting, which is fantastic. But can you also share a little bit information on the graduate and internship opportunities at CPA?
Look, there's nothing specific to CPA. Again, this comes back more to working in with members of the CPA body. So, particularly our public practitioners are all very, very keen and eager to mentor and bring through the next generation of accountants for their firms. So, reaching out directly to public practices is not an improper thing for our young up and coming people to do. And certainly through becoming part of CPA and then attending networking events and being an active member creates opportunities for up and coming students to identify potential employers that they might like to work with. Also, across the various government entities, quite a number of those do offer graduate and internship opportunities. One that comes to mind that's just recently advertised is the Queensland Audit Office. They've been looking to recruit graduates in along with people that have actually completed the program. But there are other departments across the Queensland state government sector that also offer those types of programs, and just reaching out to the departments directly, their human resource areas, they're more than happy to steer and guide prospective accountants around that particular potential. I think also a point to make, I'm actually working quite closely with employability discussion group inside of CPA currently, and what I'm finding that I'm needing to coach and develop in people that attend that group is a willingness to take opportunity as opposed to trying to career plan too rigorously to a particular outcome. So being quite open to use your business related skills for argument's sake to open a door where you might take a role rather than in the finance department. It might be in the corporate governance area, or it might be in audit or something that perhaps you've not thought of before, and then getting some insight into a particular business that then potentially opens that door into finance. And when people become aware of your credentials that you might have, then you get back onto your logical career trajectory. So in my own personal set of circumstances, I did that through some work that I did in the hospitality and tourism sector. So I worked in front office and reservations and things like that in the hotel industry for a period of time. And similarly, I did some hands-on work in commercial real estate and domestic real estate. Again, just creating a deeper appreciation of those businesses, and then subsequently moved into senior roles in organisations that might have specialised in those business models.
Excellent. That's good to know. And of course, like I mentioned before, we have been receiving thousands of inquiries or in a year about accounting, about CPA, and I'm going to of course ask Pratibha as well what kind of trend they see at IdP in terms of the demand for accounting programs or programs accredited by accounting. Again, one of the key things which now these are the counselors, these are the education partners that we work with. So we did a quick poll to ask them, what question would you like to ask CPA? And by far a winner was the top 3 tips from CPA perspective to future accounting students. So if I were to ask you, what are your top 3 tips for future accounting students in Australia? That would be fantastic and very valuable for our future students as well.
Look, that's a really, really interesting question, and a colleague of mine put some responses together, but I'm going to be cheeky and put my own ideas forward because I think it's really important, having been an employer of accountants for many, many years. The things that set people apart are really this eagerness to understand the business that you're accounting for. So really finding out about the business model and what the drivers are, having a true curiosity in whatever client you might be working with. So it might be that you're you're employed in a particular business, or you might be working with a variety of clients across a number of different businesses. You serve yourself really well if you do your due diligence and really get to know what makes the business tick. That also makes the technical side of your job a whole lot easier to do. Being technically competent, capable is really important too. So staying up to date and being contemporary in your approach in how you go about the hands-on aspects of the role. So there's a real expectation of employers and clients that you will tick that technical box of competency without a shadow of a doubt. So you need to really know your stuff. And then the third thing, which really sets people apart, is being able to tell the story. So I've come across a lot of accountants who can pull a set of numbers together and develop a report and put a report on somebody's table. But when they're actually asked to help the audience understand what the figures are telling them, sometimes they really struggle with putting that story together. And that's really how we straddle the bridge between our profession and the people that we're delivering services to or we're providing advice to. So developing those skills certainly can't be underestimated. So they're probably my top three.
Fantastic. I'm sure that's going to be handy tips for our future accounting students, as probably even current accounting students. And of course, I have one last question. I'm going to reserve that, till the end. But at this stage, I'm going to bring PRATIBHA Sen, who is the Associate Director at IdP, on the screen. And PRATIBHA, here you are in a few seconds. Welcome to the Virtual Coffee Show, PRATIBHA. How are you today?
Very well, Shrikant. Thank you for this opportunity. This is the first time actually interacting directly with somebody from CPA. So this is exciting. We can ask direct questions that the students and parents have.
Fantastic.
So Kerry, was a lot of parents ask us that CPA is a certification. So which are the countries apart from Australia can a student actually practice with the help of this certification, or what would be the translation examinations that they'll have to take if they go, say, come back to India or go to any other country? Could you throw some light on that?
I can certainly help you with the countries. In terms of the exam translations, I probably don't have as much confidence about that, but certainly the countries that we have offices in and significant numbers of members, we have a division in New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia, Greater China, which also has a significant office in Hong Kong. And then in Europe, and the head office for Europe is in London. But I'm also aware that we have members right across the globe. So throughout the Pacific, we've got members in Fiji that I'm aware of. And just prior to COVID breaking out, I was meant to be taking a holiday in Africa, and I had lined up to catch up with about a dozen or so African CPAs while I was over there. But unfortunately, all of that had to be put on ice. So we really do have quite a considerable spread across the globe, but primarily in Australia and Asia currently.
That's great to know. I just have a question which counselors do often come across. So CPA certification would require you a certain qualification, and obviously we go to universities like JCU to study that qualification. But a student who's overseas studied a commerce and wants to take a professional accountancy as their master's versus an MBA as in master's, is there any limitation? Let me rephrase it. So if I've done a BCom and I want to study an MBA in Australia and then do my CPA units, is there a limitation, or it has to be an MBA?
My understanding is MPA is a very sound pathway through, but there are a variety of pathways available. And my suggestion is if people have got prior learning that they would like to have considered in terms of their passage to or pathway to becoming a CPA member, that they actually reach out to our membership body, because they prefer to give advice on a case-by-case basis, so that they can assess where people's credentials have come from, and do a little bit of an audit on that before they provide advice. But certainly there's more than just the accounting pathway as an undergraduate, or an undergrad degree is not the only pathway to becoming a CPA. Certainly we opened that up a few years ago so that people with other business disciplines like ICT and marketing and communications could bring those skills to CPA, and if they'd had exposure to accounting, might find that they can do some foundation exams, pass those exams, and not necessarily have to do some of the key modules in the CPA program if their base skill level was adequate.
Right. Thanks a lot, Kerry.
Excellent. Pratibha, I've got a quick question for you over there. Now, of course, in COVID-19 times, there has been a huge drop in student inquiries, and I know IdP has been doing a lot of virtual activities, and still managed to generate hundreds and thousands of inquiries. But have you seen any trend in terms of students inquiring about particular fields? For instance, there is a word in the market that IT and healthcare will continue to boom and is not as much affected. But do you see any, trend about accounting? Has anything changed as far as accounting inquiries are concerned?
Shrikant, that's a very good question. We are trying to analyze the trends. It's a very transitional period. Nobody's gone through it. So in the minds of the students and parents, they're still looking at programs that they have previous qualifications for and interest and passion. And we do see a lot of students, to be very frank, come and ask for accounting because they know the careers in Australia for accounting are good, and in terms of immigration benefits and things like that, that they can connect, that influences their decision to take a program. So I would say that accounting is still one of the top sought programs within business that students look for. Having said that, now students do ask that what are the new trends in accounting? Is there a combination of more machine learning accounting that rather than the traditional one? And they ask what are the future jobs in accounting are going to be like? Would it be taken over by artificial intelligence in future? We're talking about kids who would be taking up a career, 4 to 6 years ahead. So they are trying to analyze the careers of future within accounting. How would they be? And probably as educators, as providers, we need to think around that domain as how we can get those new technologies merged within a traditional accounting program. And I'm sure Kerry can throw some light. Probably we are doing that already in Australia.
Yes, absolutely. We're certainly within the CPA program, there'll be a refresh to some subject offerings coming up in the not too distant future. And later on in our discussion, I think we've got a question in relation to some initiatives that we've got coming up. So I'll share that with you a little bit later. But what I can say is that it's really important for current accountants to be embracing what the future might look like in order to create what the future of the profession might look like. And I think for our students coming through, they have this wonderful advantage over people that are more senior in the profession in that they're coming through as digital natives. So when these changes actually emerge, they're actually potentially great change agents in organisations as they actually transition from the old world of accounting to what will definitely have to embrace the likes of artificial intelligence and robotics and so on. But I don't see that in a negative way. I think we still need to have those storytellers that can make sense of the numbers. And as long as we've got to have those storytellers, there's going to be a role in professional accounting, particularly for our small to mid-range businesses too. So a lot of the AI and robotics is being applied to larger entities as we speak, but the actual take up of that over time, right down to the mum and dad business, is probably going to take, quite a considerable period of time. So I see a transition journey lasting, anywhere from probably, 3 to 10 years before everybody's kind of really embracing the opportunity that some of these more digital offerings are creating in the profession.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback, ladies. And of course, what I would do now is I will invite Ritika on the screen. And Ritika, as I mentioned, she is one of our star alumni who's completed MPA MBA program. Ritika, here you are in a couple of seconds on the screen.
Hi, Shrikant. Thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure, Ritika. And of course, as you know, you've been backstage, you've been listening to us. So there's Pratibha from IdP, we've got Kerry from CPA.
Hi, Pratibha. Hi, Kerry. Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
Awesome. So Ritika, you are, of course, one of our star alumni at James Cook University. And I was pleasantly surprised when you said, I haven't done 1, but 3 internships at James Cook University, and all, of course, in accounting, which is fabulous. A lot of students do ask us, do you have internships? Do you have any project work that students can engage into? And we would normally say, yes, you can do an internship at the end of your program, and that all our programs are accredited by CPA and all that stuff. But you've done 3 internships. Now, firstly, congratulations on successfully completing those 3 internships and securing a job. Well done to you.
Thank you.
First question to you is, what was the big advantage that you found studying at James Cook University in Brisbane?
The biggest advantage, I would say, is the Job Links program that James Cook offers. All the 3 internships that I went through were thanks to the Job Links program. So Juliana, who sits in the Job Links office, was very helpful. As an international student coming into Australia, obviously, you don't know how the process works, where to go for the interview, what the employers are expecting you to know. And that's where Juliana stepped in, and she really assessed my strengths and weaknesses. And then she gave me references to employers, and she did train me for the interviews as well. And all thanks to that, I could secure all the 3 internships. The second internship that I did at the accounting firm, I joined it mid-year, and after the end of the 3-month internship, they were very happy with my performance, and then they hired me full-time. So that was my first job in Australia, first official job in Australia. So that's all thanks to the Job Links program. So yes, that is the big advantage.
Fantastic. That's very nice to know. And of course, you mentioned that your internship allowed you to obtain a full-time job in Australia. And we often tell our students that your internship and your project work that you do, and especially at James Cook University, that's the way I put it, is that's your passport to obtaining a full-time job in Australia. And of course, we'll get views from Kerry as well on this, but that's the one thing which we talk about when we speak of James Cook. And I'm glad you're endorsing that today on the show, that it has been actually helpful to you. So lovely to know that. Ritika, now you've been there, you've done that. What are your top 3 tips as somebody who has been an international student? What are your top 3 tips for future students in accounting?
For students who are coming to Australia, I wish somebody had told me these things maybe when I was joining, but I would like to pass it on to the next group of people who are coming in. The first one being that as soon as you come you start your course, you settle into Australia, get to know how it is. Start approaching employers for internships. Do not wait for your course to get over and then applying for graduate programs. I'll say start from day one, approach employers, approach businesses that you would like to work for, because that would mean you would be one step ahead than all the other graduates who would then graduate with you after a couple of years. You really need that competitive edge. The next tip, like Kerry mentioned, technical capabilities. There are a few softwares that most of the firms in Australia use for their accounting, and there are various courses available online which you can take and finish the course, know how the system works. I would highly recommend students who are studying accounting to take those courses, finish them before you graduate. Again, that would just give them that competitive edge once they have completely graduated. And the third thing would be the passion. From what I have seen, employers really want students who do have that passion for the subject, who are ready to learn. So as long as you can show that in your interview that you are ready to learn and you are there to sort of, grow with the company, I'm sure they will take you on full time. So that's how it helped me.
Excellent. And I'm sure, Pratibha would find this valuable because, Pratibha and her team, they meet thousands of students, perhaps every month. And a number of students would be inquiring not just about accounting, but how to succeed and what things to do and what not to do, as an international student. So, of course, this is a recording we're going to share with our future students, our education partners across the world, Ritika, and I'm sure future students will find this very, very helpful. One last question for you, Ritika, is, of course, we've spoken about the top 3 tips, but in your assessment, including your own case, what would you say are the most common mistakes for an international student to avoid? And I'm sure you've done a few. Because as an international student, I recall my journey 15 years ago. And if I go back, I would say I wish I had done this better, or if I had really got involved into something like a project or things like that. So what are your suggestions, or rather the most common mistakes international students should avoid?
That is a question that obviously it differs person to person. A mistake for me would be, now looking back, I really got into social clubs and social groups a little bit later into my course. What I would suggest is to get into it right from the start. I was lucky enough that in my final semester, I was part of the CPA Student Ambassador Program, which I should mention really helped me. The CPA Congress that they have annually really gets you along with other graduates from other universities. You know what they are doing. You meet some masterminds in the accounting industry. You know what the current trends are. So I would suggest, don't hold back from your first semester. Start interacting with other people. If there are groups, if there are events, start attending them from the start. Don't wait till your end of your course or after you're graduated for that to happen.
Fantastic. That's always good to know. And the reason I put that question is because it actually came from some of our education partners. Because students, I was quite amazed looking at the question, but it's such a sensible question, because when I relate it to myself, I would say, yeah, there are things which you sometimes think you shouldn't have done. So very nice to get the feedback, Ritika. So Kerry, just want to ask you this very important question. Again, with what's happening around the world, and it's the whole world has turned upside down post COVID-19. What are some of the new initiatives or some plans that CPA has going forward, to make things perhaps a little easier for accounting students?
Okay. In terms of initiatives, even in terms of response to the COVID-19 pandemic, CPA Australia have got a remarkable toolkit that's now currently available on their website, and that is something that is actually accessible in general to the public. So there's some great resources there that students can go to. They might be chatting with family members that are going through difficulties with their businesses and don't have advisory services available to them. Some of those tips and tricks on that on the website can be very, very helpful, and students with their background can probably assist people in navigating their way around those tools. The other thing that's just on the horizon for the broader CPA membership, and will also be available through the CPA program, is a digital finance micro-credential. So CPA have put together a suite of 6 micro-credentialed courses in the area of digital finance, and the 6 of them culminate into a micro-credentialed certificate after 120 hours of study. The beauty of that particular program is it's self-paced, and you can do, at the moment I'm doing 2 of the modules, and it's all something that you can do from home. It's quite affordable, and in terms of the CPA program itself, it will actually be delivered as part of the program as an elective commencing in semester 2 of 2021. So our members at the moment, a number of them getting up to speed in that area, but it's fantastic that it will also be available to our student body commencing in 2021, and just positioning the membership body to be really digitally aware and at the forefront of digital finance to support their employers and their clients.
We've seen a shift in the kind of questions and concerns students have. So typically, from asking about just the university and just the program and perhaps the location, they are now asking about where's the future? You know, are there jobs in future? And we, you know, obviously, like anyone else, we are struggling to give a very definitive answer. But you know, Pratibha might share more as to, you know, if there are questions around career and jobs, and that's something very specifically we've experienced in the last 2 months. That parents especially, they're saying, we are prepared to send our child on a $70,000 program, but what about the future of accounting? And you know, how does the industry hold itself going forward? Pratibha, do you have any feedback? Do you have any such similar questions raised by your counselors in, you know, in India or Nepal?
Yeah, of course, Shrikant. I think I'll take it from where Ritika left it. It is around how a student as well does their bit to be more employable. Everybody's looking for a return on investment, and parents, when they are investing so much on a foreign education, sending their children abroad, they're obviously looking at a return which would be better than what they would have got staying back in the home country. So that's pretty logical to be expecting that kind of a return and progress. The questions around program availability, units, jobs, you're right, the dimension has changed a little bit. They ask for specific things like work integrated learning. They ask for internships. They ask for these things that within the course there is a practical unit so that they're work ready once they're a graduate. So I see this trend changing, and it's also because the next generation, like Ritika and others, have become more aware with the technology, the research that they do, how much they read on the internet about a program or about a career. They have become much more aware. So they ask these kind of questions, which probably going back, I've spent nearly 18 years. I would say in the previous decade, you wouldn't have seen students asking these kind of questions, but now more and more, they want to know about the work component within the program, because everybody is very fast-tracked right now in terms of, their stepping stones in career and how fast they can do well in it. When it comes to accounting, like I said previously, a lot of awareness is there that in Australia, accountancy is quite sought after. So we do get a lot of students who have friends and family in Australia referring them to do accountancy. Then again, now things are changing a little bit. They want to do accountancy with a bit of finance, with a bit of banking, international relations, something to do with, information technology. So from here, I can probably share that I see a sense of some dual programs, dual interest combination programs coming, and it would not be too far in the horizon that probably providers and universities, maybe JCU, looks at some kind of an accountancy course in future, which combines some other disciplines as well. So from my experience, these have been the kind of trends that we are seeing changing over the period of time.
Fantastic. That's good. And Kerry, did you also want to add anything on that point of future of accounting post COVID?
Yeah, look, I've really found what was just said really interesting in terms of duality or multiplicity of skill set. What happens with the accounting profession is that those that tend to excel in the profession often differentiate themselves by bringing in another discipline potentially. So I think, as I mentioned before, when I moved into hospitality and tourism, and also when I moved into real estate, I just found having those additional disciplines under my belt just really made me attractive as a broader leader and more of a generalist in terms of moving into those executive director kind of roles later in my career. So anything that you can do to get that foundation earlier in your career, so having a dual focus in your undergrad studies or in your postgraduate studies can be really, really beneficial. And the other thing that I really wanted to comment on was Ritika's comments regarding her time as a student ambassador at CPA Australia, and also the job links opportunity that JCU created. International students in particular, making use of those opportunities really opens up just so many more doors than if people just come and undertake their studies and don't actually reach out to the broader community and the broader network to make themselves aware of what opportunities are available, even for non-international students. So even for domestic students, the importance of networking to secure that first job really can't be underestimated. It applies, right across the board, not just in the accounting profession, but just throughout opportunity across Australia. If you're well networked and somebody's seen your face before you arrive at an interview for a particular role, that just positions you so much better than doing a cold call type interview. So it can't be underestimated, and I think that's why Ritika's had the success that she's had. She's really embraced everything that's been provided to her to ensure her success, which has been fantastic.
Excellent. So, all right. So that brings us to the end of a very quick coffee show on accounting in Australia. But again, Kerry, because we continue to receive these inquiries about accounting, about CPA, and we try our best to, pass on the information about CPA. Are there any websites? Is there any link or email that our future accounting students could, access to receive information directly from CPA? What would you suggest for such students?
The first step really is to have a look at the CPA Australia website, and there are resources that are available on the website itself. If you're having difficulty navigating that, reaching out to the head office that's located most closely to you. So, for example, here in Queensland, if you were to reach out to the Brisbane office, we've got 3 or 4 staff there in the office that can help students navigate the website and get the resources that they really need that will make a difference for them.
really want to thank you, Kerry, for making time for this virtual coffee show on accounting today. Appreciate your presence.
An absolute pleasure to sip tea with you.
Absolutely. Pratibha, thank you to you too. I know these are difficult times in the recruitment world, and of course, we are all the same boat, but IdP is doing a fantastic job, I must say. With the number of inquiries and students we are still meeting on Zoom through IdP, it's just incredible. So thank you, Pratibha, for coming in on the show.
Thank you, Shrikant, and it was lovely to meet Ritika and Kerry. I think it is a very valuable information that students can carry from here. Small tips, but they can use it big time if they're looking at accounting programs.
Absolutely. And Ritika, of course, we always believe that for students to learn new things and follow someone, they need to have a role model. So we've had role models from James Cook University, from IT, business world, and now here you are here today from the accounting industry. I'm sure students are going to find this very, very useful. So thank you once again, Ritika. And I'll be sending you the recording very soon.
Thank you, Shrikant.
Fantastic. Look forward to it.
Thanks,
Thank you.